It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. So, one of the questions I often get asked regarding product managers is about achieving strategic clarity. When you have such an enormous amount of responsibility as a product manager, how do you get to the point where you can think like a product manager? And what does it take to really up your strategy game? How do you get better at doing what you do? And I thought I'd throw together some tips for you. I'm a shoe for five. We'll see what we got. So I'm going to try to pull 5 tips, 5 things that you can do to help you think more like a product manager, behave more like a product manager, and up your product management game. So here we go. Coming at number one, right out of the gate, no question, is to be able to identify your consumer correctly and look at everything that you're facing as a client centric problem. Now, what do I mean by that? You need to shift your point of view. So, part of it could be, how do we optimize what we're trying to do to appeal more to how our client behaves? Now, this has a lot to do with persona development, persona identification, and all those good things. But we also want to make sure that we're aware of what we're trying to push out in the world and what we're trying to get out of it. But we need to shift our focus from what we want to get out of the work to how our clients benefit from what we're trying to do. Because I think too often we lean in on what the subject matter expert thinks, or we lean in on what we think might be best, or we lean in more on strategy, and we're not as focused on the outcome as we should be. So, this is just a reminder that the outcome to the consumer is far more important than the output that we crank out. So, it's one of those things where we need to change our mindset to more of, how is this going to help our customer grow? Or how is this going to help benefit us with regard to customer retention if that's a problem that we're struggling with? Sometimes we're focused so much on meeting unmet needs that we're not focused on sustainable growth, retention, and effectiveness. Just makes sense, right? Okay, let's go to number 2. This one is one that I explain quite a bit in my advanced product owner class. It talks about understanding the difference between strategy and planning, because those are two totally different things. So, strategy is client centric, creative, problem solving framework focused on driving outcomes through effectiveness. It's probably the heartbeat of what product management is. Planning is internally focused, analytical approach focused on delivering outputs through efficiency. So one focuses more on efficiency, the other focuses more on effectiveness. So if you wanted to put it this way, planning is more of a project management principle, where strategy is more of a product management principle. Now, the work still needs to get planned, it still needs to get managed, it still needs to happen. But I think that you need to focus more on the product management, client centric creative problem solving piece as opposed to the project management piece. Now, there is a time and a place for that project management piece if we're struggling to get things out of the door, if we're trying to regain our focus. These are definitely things that we can apply. But I think that as a product manager, you need to understand the difference. All right. How about number 3? How am I going to word this one? You can't do it all by yourself. I think sometimes we try to design and strategize and put together everything. We want to get all of the ideation, all of the other pieces, the discovery, if you will. We want to do it all ourselves, and boy, that would be great. But the truth is, as a product manager, you could spend days, months, weeks, even years designing a perfect strategy, hand it off to a team for execution, and not get exactly what you wanted, right? So I think that you need to surround yourself with individuals, including business analysts to understand the heartbeat of the customer, functional analysts to understand strategically what direction we're trying to go, and technical analysts who understand exactly what the strengths of the team are and what they can deliver, so that we can have a good surrounding group of individuals to help support us and lift us up when it comes in the areas that we're short in. Sometimes you have a product manager that's really strong in understanding consumer needs. Other times you have a product manager that really struggles with that part, but they understand strategically where we're trying to go. I guess what I'm trying to say is identify the weakness and fill in those gaps with individuals who can help you get there. All right, let's go to number 4. Learn how to gather and use qualitative over quantitative insights, and make sure you have regular client touch points. Now, this is interesting. This is the whole focus on outcome, not output piece, right? But I think that sometimes we're afraid to interview end users. We're afraid to put it out there for A B testing for new features or products and ask people what they think, get opinions. I think that the one that hurts the most sometimes is going out for social media sentiment and figuring out how people actually feel about what we've done and where our shortcomings were and what we can do to improve. And I think this has to do with starting with empathy. Now, I want to make sure I define empathy. A lot of people say empathy is walking a mile in someone else's shoes. I'm just going to augment that and say empathy is walking a mile in someone else's shoes while remembering to take your own shoes off first. I think that too often we try to walk with empathy, but we walk with empathy while still having bias, which is an interesting approach, right? We need to make sure that we're building those touch points and relationships and that we're not just assuming that things are going to be a certain way. Okay, let's go with number 5. Make sure you understand and practice the 3 lenses of execution, impact, and optics. Now, this might not be something that we've talked about before. Maybe we need to do a separate podcast episode on this. But I know I read before that there was an article that talked about a model called the 3 levels. And I'm going to try to rehash it the best I can. The impact level is how important is the work to the organization as a whole. The execution level was how do we take this idea from ideation through discovery to delivery of a working product or service for our clients. And optics are how are others within the organization perceiving us and perceiving our work. And while optics may not sound important, perception is a big deal because if you're being perceived as not doing as much as you could, or if you're being perceived as not being innovative, those are all things that you're going to need to work on and try to make better. So I think that if we gather around the workforce, the people who are actually cranking out the work, and we apply these 5 things, I think it's really going to help us. I think it's going to help us as product managers realign where we are, get strategic clarity, and be able to push forward and make things better for our entire product or service and organization. That's going to do it for this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.